We know what it means as a team, but what about individually for you?
Just got one more to Shaq.
The Lakers win their 16th title, and this has to be one of the sweeter ones as they defeat the Celtics finally in a Game 7.
The Los Angeles Lakers face a ton of questions going forward. A very embarrassing elimination here in Dallas.
But we all know last night the Los Angeles Lakers basically got their asses ran out of Oklahoma City.
It's becoming obvious that this Lakers team, as presently constructed, they're just not championship contenders.
So you've got the wrong executive in Jim Buss, the wrong coach in Byron Scott, the wrong roster, and Kobe surrounded by this mess. I have never seen a player of Kobe's greatness and Kobe's magnitude be left to hang and dry the way that he has.
The year is 2010, and Kobe Bryant had just earned the crowning jewel achievement of his career. The Lakers had repeated, beating the rival Boston Celtics in triumphant fashion, earning Kobe his 5th ring and 2nd Finals MVP. Bryant, in his 14th season, was just 31 at this point. The final chapter of his career was envisioned as one that would be filled with a handful of more championship runs. He could tie Mike with ring number 6, or he could pass him with 7, perhaps cementing himself as the undisputed GOAT. The optimism was through the roof, especially considering the NBA's most revered franchise, the Lakers, were the ones steering the ship. What could go wrong? After this Celtics victory, their 16th total franchise championship, the Lakers were riding quite high, but they had a real problem that needed to be addressed: age. The Lakers roster was approaching UNC status. The following 2010-11 season highlighted this problem immensely. Part of Kobe getting older was that his knee problems were getting worse, so he addressed it with a surgery in July. It's never good to get knee surgery. Plus, his older supporting cast was weighed down by a variety of factors, ranging from Lamar Odom having fatigue from playing FIBA basketball all summer, to Pau Gasol suffocating under a brutal 37 minutes per game average. The guy giving him these tough minutes was Phil Jackson, one of the most accomplished coaches in the history of the game. But the GOAT coach was on his way out. He had announced in the summer of 2010 that the 2010-11 season would be his last, because a prophecy told him that's what he should do. So, the two-time defending champs entered the regular season with some question marks. Yet despite this, they still won 57 games, the same amount as the year prior. However, unlike previous seasons, there was way more frustration that surrounded the team. It all started from the beginning of the season. Lakers practices throughout the Kobe era were always known for the Mamba bringing unmatched fiery intensity directed to his teammates. This had a real impact on how other players approached practices and thus the games. But since Bryant was constantly training with team staff on that surgically repaired knee, he wasn't as available during practice to verbally abuse his teammates. This led to some unchecked animosity growing between Kobe and the gang. Guys felt like they could take days off, because I'm not there, Bryant was quoted as saying. Kobe always expected great things from his teammates, which means he was never afraid to call them out. This reached a boiling point in late December 2010. The Lakers, who had opened up the year looking unstoppable with a 13-2 record, began stumbling, suffering 3 straight losses in December that angered Kobe greatly. First, they got blown out by a mediocre Bucks team at home, in a game where Bryant got ejected. Then, on Christmas Day 2010, they got whooped by the younger, quicker, more athletic Miami Heat Big Three. Kobe promptly called out his teammates for quote-unquote not caring about these types of primetime games afterwards. Then, 3 days later, they got smacked again, this time by the Spurs.
There's nothing malicious there from George Hill. That's Kobe Bryant showing his frustration.
Bryant was so annoyed by this 3-game skid that he refused to talk to any media or coaching staff for 5 days. He ignored his teammates on the floor too, to the point where he began shooting immediately after receiving a pass, which led to him missing 13 straight shots in this Spurs game. This prompted some in the NBA media to call him selfish. Then a few days later, in another loss to the Grizzlies, Phil Jackson publicly blasted Kobe and blamed him for the loss. He accused Bryant of shooting the team out of the game in the third quarter with his ball hog tendencies. Kobe, who shot 12 times in that quarter alone, responded by acknowledging the criticism and taking responsibility.
But he was right. I mean, I totally broke the offense, but I did it intentionally because I felt like we needed to get something started. Because what we were doing, just wasn't working. So I tried to kickstart it, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't.
So entering the 2011 playoffs, the Lakers were in an interesting position. Clearly, there were a few cracks beginning to show in the foundation of their championship core. At the same time, though, they had won the last 2 chips, and were predicted by many to have a legitimate shot at a three-peat in spite of their flaws. They entered the playoffs as the 2nd seed, and eliminated the Chris Paul Hornets in round 1 and 6. Next up were the Dallas Mavericks. Interestingly, LA was overwhelmingly favored here. To make things even better for them, the biggest threat to both LA and Dallas, the number 1 seeded San Antonio Spurs, had been shockingly eliminated in round 1. The stage appeared to be set for a Kobe-LeBron finals matchup we'd all been dreaming of, but unfortunately for LA, they ran into a team of destiny. They got curb stomped by the Mavericks, getting swept. They blew leads in both games 1 and 2, and got destroyed in game 4 by a Dallas team that hit an NBA playoff record 23s from beyond the arc. The Lakers' most memorable moment on the court wasn't their play, but was when their center Andrew Bynum got ejected in game 4 after throwing a ridiculously dirty elbow to JJ Barea's chest.
And that's one of the biggest Bush League things I've ever seen. That is terrible.
LA's ambitious hopes of a three-peat ended in an embarrassing, humiliating upset. Afterwards, Phil Jackson followed through on his promise to retire, ending the reign of one of the greatest coaches in NBA history. This departure created a major power vacuum in the Lakers' leadership structure. You see, in charge to find his replacement were GM Mitch Kupchak and the Buss family. None of these guys agreed on anything. Jerry Buss was the longtime owner of the franchise. His family ran many aspects of the Lakers organization. His son, Jim Buss, was in charge of basketball operations. His daughter, Jeannie Buss, was in charge of the business side, and on top of this was Phil Jackson's girlfriend. So all of these people with varying opinions now had to come together and agree on a new coach replacement. Rather than hiring Jackson's assistant that Kobe wanted in Bryant Shaw, they instead brought in Mike Brown, who had just been let go from LeBron and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Mike Brown would last just around 1 season with the franchise, a complete failure of a hire. But during this time, the Lakers were focused on more than just coaching. They saw how their supporting cast for Bryant was an old ticking time bomb, so they completely overhauled their team, orchestrating a shocking blockbuster trade with the hopes it would end in yet another championship. Pau Gasol would go to the Rockets, and Lamar Odom to the Hornets. An incredibly expensive package, but it all seemed to be worth it, as the greatest duo in the league would be formed as a result. Chris Paul, the young superstar point guard himself from the New Orleans Hornets, would be coming to LA. Soon after the trade was agreed on by both sides though, it fell through. Why? The Hornets, who were owned by David Stern and the NBA at the time, decided to reject this trade for quote-unquote basketball reasons. So while it was announced publicly that the trade was happening, after a few hours, it was announced that, never mind.
I just don't like you. You don't? No.
The ramifications from this stunning event sent shockwaves through the Lakers organization that are still felt to this day. The Hornets quickly reloaded and shipped CP3 to the Lakers' arch nemesis, the LA Clippers, which was a huge slap in the face. So not only did LA whiff on getting Kobe's best teammates in Shaq, but now the Lakers players who were told they had been traded had to make an incredibly awkward return to the team. Of course, there were some hard feelings. Lamar Odom, a key piece, saw all this transpire and had little desire to play for the squad that just traded him. So the Lakers had to scramble, moving the disgruntled Odom to the Mavericks for the poo-poo platter, receiving just a protected first rounder for the reigning sixth man of the year. What this Odom trade also did was increase Andrew Bynum's role with the team, which in turn forced Pau Gasol to take a back seat in terms of post touches. Gasol's role would only shrink as the years went by, much to his displeasure. The 2011-12 season under Mike Brown saw the Lakers begin a slow decline, but they were still productive, earning the 3rd seed in a competitive Western Conference. More problems between Kobe and his teammates arose once the playoffs rolled around. In the Round 1 series versus the Denver Nuggets, LA jumped out to a 3-1 lead, but dropped both games 5 and 6. Kobe was sick as a dog in Game 6 specifically. He had a stomach issue that forced him to take 2 bags of IV fluids before the game and 2 more at halftime. He still gutted out a 31-point performance, but the Lakers got blown out, and of course, he had something to say about it. Asked whether he thought his teammates had matched his heart, Bryant said no, of course they didn't. Then he mentioned how Metta World Peace was the only teammate he could truly rely on, which prompted more criticism from the media, who accused him of throwing his teammates under the bus.
Stephen A. Smith, I love me some Kobe Bryant. You know that. But that was a flat-out selfish shot at his teammates. I didn't like it, and trust me, they didn't like it.
Despite the teammate bashing, the sickness, and the very public statement from Magic Johnson that Mike Brown should be fired if they were eliminated, LA survived and closed out Denver in Game 7. The young gunning OKC Thunder were up next. And once again, the eventual Western Conference champion knocked off LA. The Thunder's youth and athleticism guided them to an easy 5-game series victory. The closeout Game 5 in Oklahoma City was brutal to watch for Lakers fans. As the rowdy Thunder crowd cheered them on, OKC hit devastating shot after shot, dramatically pulling away in the second half. LA used to be the team that struck fear into their enemies, but now the faster and more explosive new kids on the block ran circles around them. They were helpless to watch. No moment more clearly represented this than in the third quarter, where Russell Westbrook stole a pass, ran down the length of the floor, and threw in an incredible flip shot that sent the arena into a frenzy. The look on the 33-year-old Kobe's face told it all. This would be the last playoff game he'd ever suit up for. The Lakers being stomped on in round 2 once more was ultimately a product of their failure to improve their team mid-season. They traded veteran point guard Derek Fisher and a first to Houston for Jordan Hill, but Hill was completely irrelevant in his time with the team. Bad trade. Then, as a Fisher replacement, they traded another first for young guard Ramon Sessions, who played just 23 games for the team before bolting to Charlotte in the offseason. Bad trade. The Lakers gave up multiple draft picks for what would amount to nothing, squandering the limited flexibility and assets they had remaining. While all this was happening, off the court, the Lakers organization was being completely blown up by Jim Buss, the son of the owner Jerry. After Phil Jackson retired, Jim sprinted to reshuffle the team, removing most if not all of Jackson's hirings over the years. Trainers, managers, physicians. It's almost like Jim had a vendetta against the Zen Master because he bagged his sister. The most egregious act by Jim was when he fired assistant general manager Ronnie Lester, only to replace him with his own brother. The 23-year-old Jesse Buss took the position, a guy who had just gotten arrested a few months prior for alcohol intoxication. You're telling me the guy who looks like he was plucked out of a farm in Iowa wasn't good at running a billion-dollar basketball franchise? Shocking. Fittingly, the Lakers front office was called a steaming pool of nepotism and nincompoops by CBS's Ken Berger. Well, these nincompoops were about to swing for the fences. The Lakers were tired of second-round exits. They wanted to return to the top of the NBA. What better way to do that than by going star hunting? The summer of 2012 saw them do just that. First, they acquired former MVP but still old as hell point guard Steve Nash, giving up 4 picks to do so. Then, in a stunning 4-team trade that saw young all-star big Andrew Bynum go to Philly, the Lakers brought in superstar center Dwight Howard. It was a move that made the Lakers' rivals recoil in fear. This was envisioned as the trade that would push the Lakers from solid to incredible.
And we're hopeful that 10 years from now, we can add a jersey onto that wall over there that says Dwight Howard.
Hype was oozing out of every corner of the Lakers organization. Sports Illustrated put Dwight and Nash on their cover, promising fun. If you took off the rose-colored glasses, though, the Lakers were taking quite the risk. They acquired a 38-year-old guard. That's a risk, as well as a center coming off back surgery, who was also on an expiring contract. Also a risk. Nobody cared though. The spoiled fans of LA yearned for success after being in the gutter for so long. After all, they'd gone a whole 3 years without a championship. Oh, the horror! They were gunning for a chip in 2013, and were gonna worry about all the other stuff later. Well, in just about the first week of the brand new 2012-13 season, all the hype had evaporated. Head coach Mike Brown was fired after 5 games, replaced by Mike D'Antoni, who struggled to ever incorporate his offense to the team since he was brought in so hastily. D'Antoni's fast-paced offense didn't fit with the team's older players whatsoever. Not to mention it further alienated Pau Gasol, who wanted but didn't get his post touches. On top of this, Steve Nash fractured his leg in the second game of the season, missed some time, and returned looking washed as hell. Dwight Howard struggled to reach his prior Orlando Magic form due to a slow recovery from back surgery. Egos clashed, from Kobe against Dwight for being soft, to Dwight against Gasol in a fight for starting minutes, to Nash against Dwight for his immaturity. Yeah, everyone just hated Dwight. The Lakers, predicted by most to be the best team in the league, finished at just the 7th seed with 45 wins. While this sucked, there was an even greater consequence that formed from this team sucking. Post-All-Star break, in an attempt to single-handedly drag his team to the playoffs, Kobe Bryant turned into a literal god. He had dozens of big shots and put up crazy numbers, but all these heavy minutes ended up putting a major strain on his lower body, culminating in a tragic Achilles tear he suffered against the Warriors on April 12, 2013. The Mamba, striving to carry his team to the postseason, prematurely ended his season in the most devastating way imaginable. The Lakers got swept in round 1, their first opening round loss since 2007. Then, Dwight, who hated his time in LA, bolted in free agency to Houston despite the Lakers offering him more money and an extra year on his contract. The Lakers tried everything to get him back, and once he was officially gone, the harsh realization hit. They were officially screwed. Thus began the never-ending, unsuccessful search for a second star for a Kobe Bryant who wasn't even playing games. It was a shocking descent into mediocrity. The 2013-14 season for the Lakers was a complete nightmare from beginning to end. A franchise accustomed to chasing rings experienced the worst regular season win total in nearly 60 years, winning just 27 games. Kobe quickly returned from his Achilles tear in December 2013, played 6 games, and then fractured his left knee, which sidelined him indefinitely. The aging star had just signed a 2-year extension with the team, but he wasn't going to see the floor anytime soon. Pure misery. It wasn't just Kobe who sustained heavy injuries though. The whole team was depleted, so much so that it produced this iconic image of Chris Kaman taking a rest on an empty bench in a February game against the Cavs, because the team only had 6 eligible players active. One of those active players was our old friend Pau Gasol, who at this point was sick of Coach D'Antoni's fast-paced offensive shenanigans. Coach was often left benching Gasol, which led to the two bickering at one another publicly ad nauseum. The Lakers' environment was now one of non-stop toxicity. They had moved down in most entertaining basketball team in Los Angeles, not only behind the LA Clippers, but everyone else too. Embarrassingly, the Clippers with Chris Paul had mollywopped the Lakers in front of their home crowd, handing them the largest defeat in their franchise's history, a 48-point L.
Here come the Clippers. Paul with the ball.
Not having Kobe sucked, but this team was terribly constructed, regularly trotting out starting lineups with players like Jody Meeks, Kent Bazemore, Chris Kaman, Jordan Hill, and Kendall Marshall. That team, even with Kobe, ain't doing squat. There was a tiny fraction of hope though, which lied in the summer of 2014. The Lakers had a boatload of cap space to throw at big names. The allure of the Lakers franchise had to be able to persuade one star to join, right? Hell no. They targeted LeBron James, but he went back home. They targeted Kevin Love, but he went to LeBron James. They zeroed in on Carmelo Anthony, but he enjoyed losing in New York more. The Lakers were hoping that their location in sunny Los Angeles would bail them out from their incompetence, but the reality was that nothing could save them from their impending doom. So instead, they left free agency with a pitiful haul, Jeremy Lin and Carlos Boozer, along with their lottery pick Julius Randle. Believe it or not though, people genuinely felt that the Lakers had a good chance of making the 2015 playoffs, and I have a good chance with Sidney Sweeney. The faith in Kobe Bryant was that high, but it proved futile. Instead, the Lakers lost 61 games, the most in their franchise's history. Nothing good happened this season, genuinely. First, lottery pick Julius Randle broke his leg in the first game of his career. Then, Kobe, who was already off to a rough start, needed shoulder surgery. Then, Steve Nash, who hadn't played all season, retired. Yuck. Byron Scott, the new head coach, couldn't steer the ship whatsoever. The Lakers crumbled, and as a result, received the second pick in the draft. D'Angelo Russell joined the squad, who would be more remembered in his first stint as a Laker for snitching on his teammate than actually playing well. Once 2015 free agency arrived, the Lakers once again failed to attract any big names. They had meetings lined up with 2 All-Stars, DeAndre Jordan and LaMarcus Aldridge. But all they got from this hype were poorly edited photoshops of them in Lakers jerseys. Both chose to go elsewhere. They had to make do with the signings of Lou Williams, Brandon Bass, and Roy Hibbert, a far cry from the stars fans had hoped for. If you win 21 games one year, then bring in these 3, well, it's no surprise that you're not going to do much the following season. After a 2-13 start, Kobe Bryant announced he would be retiring at the end of the season. The man who was addicted to basketball couldn't bear the thought of playing another game with the 2K auto-generated teammates he had. Plus, Bryant had become a shell of himself, and no fault of his own. Injuries had been the defining factor in his unfortunate decline. He gave Lakers fans one last show with an iconic 60-point performance, before permanently bowing out. This 60-piece was the one bright spot in an awful, forgettable 17-win season. Thus, the 20-year-long Kobe Bryant tenure in LA ended not with a bang, but a whimper. An era that, in its first 14 years, was filled with overwhelming success, such that it made the Lakers the most revered franchise in the league. But the last 6 years were so bad that it looked like it was scripted to give Lakers fans depression. When Kobe won his 5th championship ring at the age of 31, there was a sense of optimism that the twilight of his career would be filled with continued championship contention. What instead followed was an endless spiral of poor decision-making, unluckiness, front office negligence, and nepotism to go along with a rapidly declining, constantly hurt Kobe Bryant. LeBron James saw all this unfold and joined the Lakers 2 years later in 2018. It's no surprise that he's now going through exactly what Kobe did in his twilight years: mediocrity. Some franchises never learn.